Hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Simon Mansell and welcome back to the channel. It's good to be back talking about football. Obviously we're in the middle of World Cup season right now. There's been some crazy games so far. America, seeing the US completely dominate Paraguay threw me off because Paraguay came into the game with so much reputation, so much expectation that I was thinking it'd be a tough game for the US, but they absolutely battered them. Pulisic, Balogun, McKennie, they all stepped up and they all played an incredible game against Paraguay. Seeing them actually perform on that big stage in their home country and representing the World Cup on that stage, being a host nation, is great to see. Even Canada gave it a good go as well. Mexico as well, they won their opening game. Last night we had Qatar drawing against Switzerland with a late goal. Brazil drew as well. Brazil played Morocco in a tough game, really. Morocco really started the game very, very well, really hounding Brazil. They couldn't get on the ball. And then Brazil kind of grew into the game, but just couldn't really find that cutting edge. But with enough of that, enough of talking about everyone else, let's talk about the video that I'm going to be doing today. So we've got the 2006 World Cup squad against the 2026 World Cup squad, and we're going to try and do a combined 11. We obviously both teams played different formations, so we're going to try and fit them in as close as we can comparison wise. So we're going to do player for player, as close as we can match them up and see who comes out on top. So without further ado, guys, let's get straight into the video. I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. So as you can see here, this is the 2006 World Cup squad for England on the left. The most used starting 11, the probably best starting 11 that we could do at the time for England. On the middle section, we have the 2026 World Cup squad for England. So just to run through the 2006 World Cup squad, we have Paul Robinson in goal, Gary Neville right back, Rio Ferdinand and John Terry as our centre backs, Ashley Cole as the left back, David Beckham as the right midfielder, Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard in central midfield, Joe Cole out on the left, Wayne Rooney just in behind Michael Owen. Now, obviously, the 2006 World Cup was a weird one for England because Rooney and Owen both went into the tournament either carrying injuries or just coming back from injury. So we kind of mixed and matched our strikers a little bit. We'd play Peter Crouch. We only took 4 strikers, and 2 of them were carrying injuries, and the other one was Theo Walcott, who was a kid at the time. So there was no Darren Bent, there was no Jermaine Defoe, there was no Andy Johnson. Any of the strikers around that era that you thought probably maybe deserved to get into that England team, they weren't picked by Sven-Göran Eriksson. So our striking options were very limited, and especially when Owen went down in the tournament, Rooney kind of found himself playing as a lone striker in many games. As we went further on in the tournament, we kind of switched to a 4-5-1, brought in Owen Hargreaves, who played a big role in that tournament. But I thought it'd be a better comparison for the video to kind of do that England team, which was probably our strongest 11 at the time, against the current England team, which obviously we haven't played our first game yet, but this is the team that I personally think we'll start with, and that is having Jordan Pickford in goal, Reece James at right back, John Stones and Mark Guehi as the centre backs, Nico O'Reilly as the left back, Bukayo Saka as the right winger, Elliot Anderson and Declan Rice both playing in midfield, with Anthony Gordon playing out on the left, Jude Bellingham playing just behind Harry Kane. So that's how I think we're going to probably play. Obviously the formation will be quite fluid for the 2026 England team. We'll probably play 3 at times, maybe. Reece James will kind of slot into a centre-back role. Nico O'Reilly will kind of push a bit forward, add an extra man in midfield, and kind of change to maybe a 3-5-2. Overload the midfield a little bit to really hound the teams and press very heavily. But obviously we'll see how Thomas Tuchel will approach the tournament moving forward. But that is the 2 teams up against each other for me. So as you can see by the little chart that I've made, we have kind of the goalkeepers going against each other, right backs going against each other. So I'll be going player for player and comparing them, seeing who will come out on top. I'm trying to do it where I kind of put it into the perspective of 2006 England. So obviously I won't be talking about Wayne Rooney later on in his career or what he achieved. His great season in 09-10 for Man United when he got all those goals or whatever, or talking about Joe Cole at Lille, or Steven Gerrard later on in his career. we're taking this purely from the era that was 2006. So how these players were thought of at the time, what they achieved in their careers at the time, and how they were looked at the time compared to this current England team, to make it fair as well, because I do think otherwise, I mean, it'd just be the 2016 because they're all legends, they've all finished their careers. It'd be easier to kind of just run through a whole career perspective when talking about the 2006 team compared to the current team. So we're going to do it kind of era for era, the year versus the year, and see who comes out on top. Right, guys, so without further ado, the first player that we need to be looking at is the goalkeeper, and that is Paul Robinson versus Jordan Pickford. I liked Paul Robinson. I thought he did a good job for England in 2006. I thought he was a decent goalkeeper. Nothing overly outstanding or impressive. Our goalkeeping options at the time were like David James, Scott Carson, I think, went to that tournament, a very young Scott Carson. Obviously, this is post David Seaman, after Seaman retired, and we're still trying to kind of look for our main number one. That'd be our main number one goalkeeper for the next decade or so. And obviously, at this point, Joe Hart hadn't really broke through at Manchester City. So we're still looking in this kind of weird grey area where we're still trying to find that goalkeeper. And at the time, Paul Robinson was doing really, really good for Tottenham Hotspur. Obviously, left Leeds as a younger player, went to Spurs, and displaced Casey Keller as their main number one goalkeeper, and was very impressive for Spurs at the time. You can kind of look back on Paul Robinson's career and maybe say he didn't maybe keep a consistent level. For this era, Paul Robinson was a very, very good Premier League goalkeeper. Obviously, Spurs were challenging for the top four at the time under Martin Jol. They just narrowly missed out on Champions League football this season. We actually just about pipped them Arsenal. We just pipped them very, very closely, but it was very close. Went down to the last day of the season, and they just narrowly missed out on Champions League football. So Robinson's career at this point in time was looking very, very promising, but we're looking at Jordan Pickford, who obviously up to this point has been England's main number one goalkeeper for almost a decade. Shone at major tournaments for England, multiple tournaments for England as well. Multiple times he's stood up for England and been a great leader and a great example for the rest of the team. Jordan Pickford has easily been England's best goalkeeper of my era. Obviously Seaman was kind of the end of my era, but he was already on the decline at that point when I started watching football. If we're looking at 2006 versus 2026, for me, I don't think it's even a competition. I think Jordan Pickford easily walks in to this team. I think it's not even close. For what they've done for England over the years, for the way he's represented his country, the level of consistency he's had over multiple tournaments, Jordan Pickford makes the combined 11. The first point goes to the modern England team, the current England team. Let's have a look at the right back position. We have Gary Neville against Reece James. We have arguably the Premier League's greatest ever right back, if we're talking about pure consistency at the highest level. Amazing player, always turned up for England as well, very consistent. Against Reece James, who, I mean, injuries have stalled his progress, I think, a little bit during his career, but the quality that he's displayed when he plays is of a world level, where I never looked at Gary Neville as one of the best right backs in the world. I never had him in a Cafu conversation around this era. Be the main right backs would be people like Cafu, Zanetti, for example, over at Inter Milan, Lilian Thuram at Juventus. I never had him in those conversations personally, and obviously he was already getting on in his career at this point. He was already into his 30s. One of the most experienced players in the team. Had already been a full England international for 10 years or so at this point. So yeah, Gary Neville, it's tough really. I think quality-wise, if we're looking at just who is the better right back, it is Reece James. Reece James is, if we're talking just pure quality, it's Reece James. I don't think it's even really that comparable. So I would have Reece James above Gary Neville, but Gary Neville obviously deserves massive amount of respect. Was always consistent, a 6, a 7 out of 10 every game. If I'm picking my combined 11 for 2006 and 2026, I'd have Reece James in there for me. So Reece James, I will have above Gary Neville, but it is close because you're talking about consistency over quality. And I think Reece James's quality is just of a completely different level. He can do things that Gary Neville just wasn't physically able to do, wasn't technically able to do with the football. The way Reece James can, come into midfield and play in midfield, and the technical ability he has. It's just a different level of right back, in my opinion, than Gary Neville. Even though Gary Neville, like I said, was so consistent, I think Reece James was just a little bit of a higher level than Gary Neville, in my opinion. So moving on to the right centre back, we have Rio Ferdinand against John Stones. Another tough one. John Stones at this point is nearing the end of his career, where Rio Ferdinand at this point was in the peak of his career. So Rio Ferdinand hadn't done the three-peat yet with Manchester United. He hadn't won the Champions League with Man United at this point. He only won one league title. We're looking at that. He'd only not long come off the suspension for missing the drugs test. So he'd missed almost a year of football at this point. It's tough, really, because we, like I said, I'm trying to put it into the perspective of 2006. So everything post 2006 for this England team is completely irrelevant and throw out the window. So we have to look at what Rio Ferdinand did prior 2006, and he was one of the best centre backs in the world. That's pretty obvious. This was the peak of Rio Ferdinand when he was his most athletic, credible on the ball, bringing the ball out. Obviously, he was very mistake prone, which the style of defender that Rio Ferdinand is expected that he's going to make mistakes. But John Stones has been so consistent. He's been a part of those amazing Pep Guardiola teams, won multiple league titles, hasn't really played much this season, granted. So if you're talking about just the year, I guess, of 2026 versus the year of 2006, then John Stones maybe does get a little bit of a knock back on that. But if you're talking about what they've done in an England shirt, what they've done in their club career during this time, it's very close. I think Rio Ferdinand was the better centre-back. Even in this era, I would have Rio Ferdinand. 2006 Rio Ferdinand was an elite centre half. This was really the peak of his career. So you're looking at that against John Stones, who's already achieved so much. I'm gonna have Rio. I am gonna have Rio. Again, it's the Gary Neville Reece James thing, just the opposite way around. John Stones is pretty much at the end of his career. Like I said, he's in the last kind of stage of his career. He's achieved so much. You're talking about the quality of the player that Rio Ferdinand was. I don't rate Rio as highly as some other people, but I can definitely respect his quality, especially around this period of time. So this isn't taking into consideration his latter years at Manchester United, where he did decline quite quickly. We're talking about Rio at the peak of his powers. There's not many centre-backs that can really talk to Rio Ferdinand during this era. So I'm going to have Rio in this. So that is the first inclusion for the 2006 England team in this list, and that is having Rio Ferdinand in. With that out of the way, let's move on to the left-sided centre-back, and we have John Terry against Mark Guehi. Full respects to Mark Guehi, but I don't even think this is even a debate, really, is it? This is John Terry in the peak of his career, when he was one of the best centre-backs, arguably the best centre-back in the world during this era. This is when Mourinho was at the club. They'd just gone back-to-back in the league, conceded 15 goals the season before. Amazing centre-back partnership with Ricardo Carvalho. For England, again, I think really all of this team underperformed for England, if we're being honest. I don't think any of them really replicated their club form on the international stage. We're not really having that discussion. We're talking about them as players overall in this era of their career. And John Terry was arguably the best centre-back in the world at this point. All respect to Mark Guehi, I think he's a really, really good defender. Obviously, he went to Manchester City now. We have to take into consideration at this point, John Terry was arguably the best defender in the world, went back-to-back, winning league titles, was part of arguably the best defence the Premier League's ever seen. It's John Terry. So, yeah, John Terry goes in. So, at the moment, guys, we're looking at even at the moment. We have 2 players from 2026 and 2 players from 2006. It's very even at the moment. Next up, we're looking at the left-back position. And we're looking at Ashley Cole against Nico O'Reilly. Nico O'Reilly, I think, is an amazing left back. A very different kind of left back to Ashley Cole. Obviously, Nico O'Reilly is a very attack-minded left back. Will find himself almost at left wing at some point. Will be playing as like an inside forward. Ashley Cole is a more traditional left back. At this point, was considered one of the best left backs in the world. Was still at Arsenal at this point. Was about to make the move to Chelsea. So this is Arsenal, Ashley Cole. He had a few injuries in the season leading up to this World Cup, but obviously we're not just talking about this specific year. We're talking about Ashley Cole overall between start of his career to 2006. And again, like the John Terry debate, I don't really think this is much of a conversation, really. I think it's too early for Nico O'Reilly to be put in conversations with Ashley Cole. Ashley Cole at this point was a multi-time Premier League champion. It's not really a debate, is it? I don't want to waste time and drag it out. But I do think Nico O'Reilly has huge potential, and I'm a big fan of him. But it's Ashley Cole, you know. Ashley Cole is, you know, one of the best left backs in the history of English football. So, yeah, it's Ashley Cole for me. So the 2006 team, the golden generation, has 3 players in over the 2 players for the 2026 team. Okay, so moving on to the right-sided midfield, right wing position, we're looking at David Beckham against Bukayo Saka. These players play on the same area of the pitch but play completely different roles. Bukayo Saka is more of an inverted right winger, an inside forward, left-footed, playing on the right, so he'll cut in to try and score goals and create chances. Where David Beckham is a more traditional right midfielder, would stay very close to the edge of the pitch, will try and dictate play, more focused on getting crosses into the box, spreading balls across the pitch, which David Beckham was elite at. And I love Bukayo Saka. Like, Bukayo Saka, obviously, Arsenal have just won the Premier League. He has had a lot of injuries this season, so his form hasn't been what it has been in the past. But Bukayo Saka has been one of Arsenal's best players now for 5-6 years since he broke into the team. Really consistent, versatile as well. But David Beckham was one of the best players in the world in this era. Probably nearing the end of that run, really. I don't think this is peak David Beckham, but he was still very impactful, especially for England as well. Yeah, I think David Beckham and Bukayo Saka, it's a conversation to have. I don't think it's a complete whitewash at all. Bukayo Saka's level has been very, very high over the last few years, and again, very different to David Beckham. This is David Beckham really nearing the end of his run at the top of football, where Bukayo Saka is in his prime right now. So we don't know how Bukayo Saka is going to continue his career. Obviously, he broke through at a very young age at Arsenal, but with the injuries that he's had, how will his game adapt? We don't know how he's going to perform in the World Cup. So it's tough, but I do think I'm just going to pick David Beckham to Bukayo Saka on this one. I think Beckham, how influential he was for England. He was our captain, obviously. Came up with big moments. The amount of times he saved England in really important moments. You're talking about the free kick against Greece, the penalty against Argentina. David Beckham was such a symbol for that England team. And again, the quality, he always gave his best for England. And the quality he had, the ability from free kicks and dead balls, corners, his crossing ability, his vision, his passing, his work rate as well. I think David Beckham is very underrated, in all fairness. I do think Bukayo Saka has the potential to tip David Beckham, especially if we do win the World Cup and Saka plays an important role in that. But right now, I think David Beckham just about tips Bukayo Saka for me. I'd have Beckham. I'd have Beckham above Bukayo Saka. Like I said, it's tough. I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily as a whitewash as people probably would make it out to be. I think Saka's consistency over the last few years, the goals he scored for Arsenal, how well he's performed for England, I do think it puts him into a conversation with Beckham. I just think it's a little bit too early to be putting Saka's name alongside Beckham. I think it's a little bit too early for that. So next up, we have the right side of midfield, right centre midfield position. And we're looking at Steven Gerrard against Elliot Anderson. This is Steven Gerrard. This is easily Steven Gerrard, guys. Steven Gerrard is easily in this team. Um, Again, Gerrard. I don't think Gerrard. It's tough with Gerrard because I think tactically, I think Gerrard provided a few problems for England. Everyone always talks about, the Gerrard Lampard Scholes debate. How do you fit them all into the same team? And I think Gerrard was a bit of an issue for England in that aspect because tactically, as a central midfield player, I don't think he was disciplined enough to hold that role. Would find himself going forward quite a lot, would drift out to that right side quite a lot as well. But if you're talking about impact, you're talking about the quality of the player that he was, the goals that he scored for England, especially in the World Cup in 2006, the goal against Trinidad and Tobago where he cut in onto his left foot and smashed it into the top corner, the goal against Sweden. Gerrard was very important for England during this time, and obviously we're looking at his club career as well, what he was doing for Liverpool. Just came off that amazing FA Cup final against West Ham where he dragged West Ham back dragged Liverpool really back from the dead against West Ham. They looked almost out of it really, and Gerrard just providing these little moments of individual brilliance to raise the level of his team. It's typical Steven Gerrard. We talk about the Istanbul, the Champions League final, his impact there as well. I think as a pure central midfield player, you could probably say Elliot Anderson is more tactically disciplined than Steven Gerrard. You could make that argument if you want to. I think Anderson probably is a little bit smarter in possession than Steven Gerrard. But if you're looking for impact, if you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking for the kind of how high they are in their career in this era comparatively to each other, I think Steven Gerrard is way above Elliot Anderson. Anderson has the potential to have a great career and really push on during his career, but I think Steven Gerrard is just another level above Elliot Anderson for me. So next up, we have the left-sided midfield, central midfield position, and that's Frank Lampard and Declan Rice. Now, this is tough because they're so different. They're so different. Their roles in the team are so different. Frank Lampard was a goal scoring midfielder, was very smart as far as making runs into the box to get goals and to have these moments where he try and get goals and create goals. Where Declan Rice is literally an all-round midfielder, up and down, box to box. Amazing defensively, amazing going forward, great on set pieces. Frank Lampard, this is 2006, so Lampard was one of the best midfielders in the world at this point, as is Declan Rice right now. We're talking about Lampard second in the Ballon d'Or, behind Ronaldinho, 20-odd goals for Chelsea in the league. It's so tough because they're so different. You're talking about Lampard, who was a goal-scoring midfielder, and Declan Rice is kind of like the heartbeat of a team, really. More in the frame of a Steven Gerrard, a top-level athlete who get up and down the pitch, who could get you a goal, but also never shade on his defensive duties at all. It's tough. It's tougher than it seems. It's definitely tougher than it seems because we're talking about Lampard in 2006. So we kind of have to take away the year that he had for Ancelotti. We're taking away the Champions League finals, and we're just trying to have the perspective of what Frank Lampard was in 2006. You're looking at 3 years really at the top of football. I think I might have Declan Rice, I think I might have Declan Rice in this over Frank Lampard. I think if you're talking a whole career, obviously it's so tough because you have to take kind of the retrospective aspect out of it because Frank Lampard did do so much post 2006, had so many memorable seasons, achieved so much in the game. Obviously Declan Rice hasn't had the opportunity to match that yet, so it's so tough to compare the two. That's why it's important for me to just think of what Frank Lampard was in 2006 and what Declan Rice is in 2026. Compare the two, and I think I'm going to have Declan Rice. I think I am. I think as well for the balance of the team. If I'm thinking about this combined 11 and thinking about what is the best team that I can make from both of these two teams put together tactically in a system, what can I get the most out of? I think Declan Rice and Steven Gerrard is an amazing central midfield partnership. I really do. I think Royce is more defensively intelligent than Steven Gerrard. I think he could maybe cover for Gerrard's inefficiencies when it comes to his positional play and his tactical awareness. I think Declan Rice is a bit more of a smarter midfielder than Steven Gerrard. Gerrard probably is a little bit more better on the eye, maybe a bit more physical than Declan Rice, a bit faster, has a better opportunity to score goals. But I think together, those two together, that's a tough midfield. I'm having Rice. I'm having Declan Rice in this team. Obviously, just come off an amazing season with Arsenal as well. In my opinion, should have won Player of the Year. Rice and Lampard. I mean, it's weird having Declan Rice over Frank Lampard, but I just think in 2006, Lampard was arguably the best goal scoring midfielder in the world. But I think if you're creating a team, what is the best team you can build? I think Rice and Gerrard together in that midfield. Everyone talks about Gerrard and Lampard's inability to play with each other in midfield and kind of their lack of tactical structure. I think having Declan Rice next to either of them really sorts out that problem. Intelligence as a footballer would allow Gerrard to be a bit more expressive on the ball. So, yeah, I'm having Declan Rice in this team next to Steven Gerrard. But look, there's no slight on Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard in this era was arguably one of the best midfielders in the world. But so is Declan Rice right now. So it's tough, really, because taking nostalgia out of it is difficult, especially for me, because I love this era of football, the old era. I love that era. But if you're just looking at the balance of the team, who offers more to their team, tactically, who probably would be a best fit in this team, I think it'd be Declan Rice, in my opinion. So now going over to the left side of midfield, we have Joe Cole against Anthony Gordon. It's tough, really, because Joe Cole wasn't really a proper left midfielder. So he was kind of forced to play out there because England just didn't have enough options, really, on the left side of midfield. We had Stuart Downing, but he was younger. He was still coming on. He was not playing at the top level. He was playing for Middlesbrough at the time. And he was very good at a young age, Stuart Downing, but you can't really have him above Joe Cole. So Joe Cole had to start, and he was coming off an amazing time at Chelsea, an amazing 2 years at Chelsea, where he was one of the best players in the team, especially in 2005-06, when Robin was injured a lot and he'd be coming into the team playing out wide, and he could play centrally as well, playing in that number 10 position behind Didier Drogba. He was very, very important, Joe Cole. And obviously he had an amazing moment for England in the World Cup against Sweden, that volley, which, still gets played over and over today. I think Joe Cole's one of England's most naturally gifted footballers that we've ever produced. I'd have him very, very high in that conversation. I think if you're just talking about individual quality, if you're talking about talent, Joe Cole is up there for me. One of the best players England have ever produced. So you're looking at peak Joe Cole against Anthony Gordon, who's just gone to Barcelona, just had that transfer. I've got to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of Anthony Gordon. I think tactically he's very important for the way modern managers want to play. He's a press machine, the way he presses from the front. He's a relentless presser, a great player to start off a defensive press from the attack. Where someone like Joe Cole wouldn't have done that because just wasn't football in that era. So even though Gordon, I don't think technically is anywhere near a Joe Cole, I think physically, his pace, his work rate, his defensive pressure adds a lot to a team. But I can't have Anthony Gordon over Joe Cole. I just can't. They're two completely different level of footballers, in my opinion. I think Anthony Gordon is a very systemic footballer. He's the example of how you can maybe don't have the technical ability nowadays that they did back then, but because football is so systematic, it's so tactical, it's so about positional play and what you offer off the ball, not just what you offer on the ball. I think Anthony Gordon is a great example of that, and I think that's why he's got the move to Barcelona, because if you look at the way Hansi Flick plays football, how high Barcelona press, the high line that they do, Anthony Gordon's going to flourish in that system. He might play in the middle as well, similar to what Dembele's done. at PSG, where he's the first line of the pressure for PSG to win the ball back. That's going to be Anthony Gordon at Barcelona under Hansi Flick. I just can't compare Gordon to Joe Cole. It's a different level of footballer. Joe Cole's so technical. His dribbling ability, his vision as well, his passing ability, some of the goals he could score. Great from set pieces as well. Yeah, I'm having Joe Cole, I think, over Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon, like I said, I don't rate him that highly as a footballer, but I think as an athlete, as an asset to a team, for a modern day footballer, what you need from a modern day winger in modern football, I think Anthony Gordon is a real example of what you need from a modern winger. So that's why I think he'll do well at Barcelona. And he'll probably do well for England at the World Cup under Tuchel as well. Obviously, I was thinking Gordon or Rashford, but I think the way Tuchel will want to play and he'll want to press very high up the pitch, I think Anthony Gordon's going to be a very important part of England's World Cup tactically, especially moving on to, when we play some of the better teams and we have to be a bit more tactically structured. I think Anthony Gordon's going to be a very important part for this World Cup for England. So we'll see how it goes. But right now, I think Joe Cole definitely is my option in this team. So I'm having Joe Cole in there. Next up, we have Wayne Rooney against Jude Bellingham. I'm having Rooney, even though Rooney in this tournament did a lot of the time play as a lone striker. He also did play in a two sometimes. He played with Owen in a two. He played with Crouch in a two. So I am going to have Rooney just behind the main striker in this. Similar to how I think Bellingham will play for England. I think he'll play alongside Harry Kane. So when Kane drops in, Bellingham will push forward and try and get goals and get into the box and be a threat for England from those positions. Similar to how Rooney wasn't a traditional striker. He wasn't just a number 9. He would drift deep into midfield. He'd pick the ball up. He'd run from deep. He'd press the centre-backs. You're looking at two players, similar points in their career, I guess. Maybe Rooney a little bit younger than Bellingham was. Rooney was still very young, actually, at this point. I think he was only about 20 years old, but he'd achieved so much in football at this point. Hadn't won a league title yet for Man United. That's obviously granted. But you look at Euro 2004, arguably was the best player at the tournament in Euro 2004 before he got injured against Portugal. What he did against France, what he did against Croatia, and the level of performance that Rooney was putting in that tournament was unreal. As an 18-year-old as well as a young kid, scary stuff. I remember Wayne Rooney's debut for England against Australia. I think we might have lost 3-1. I think we didn't play very good at all. I think Francis Jeffers scored in that game, but Rooney came on off the bench and was just like a breath of fresh air. I was still young at this age, but I remember it so vividly. And he came on, and again, the energy he had, the way he was driving at players, it was something very unique for English football that we hadn't really produced a player like that probably since Gascoigne. A player that can pick the ball up and really drive at teams, had the technical ability to pick a pass and score a goal. Wayne Rooney was an all-round attacker, really. He wasn't just a number 9, he wasn't just a striker, he was an all-round forward. But this time he was coming off that horrible injury he had against Chelsea where he broke his foot in that tackle he had against John Terry. So he came into the 2006 World Cup tournament really injured. I mean, he broke his foot like a month before. He was just rehabbing the entire time. Didn't start the tournament for England. I think came on in the second game. Was it against Colombia? Was it Colombia or Ecuador? Maybe. I think it was Ecuador. Came on and obviously had these glimpses of quality. Showed these little moments that he had, but he just wasn't fit that tournament. And it does beg the question, if Wayne Rooney was fit, if he didn't break his foot against Chelsea, what could have England done in the 2006 World Cup? Time is the great, revealer, and obviously Rooney he wasn't fit that tournament. He was playing really a role that he shouldn't have played, playing up front on his own. He needed support. He needed to play more of a creative role. This is tough because obviously this is before Rooney really achieved anything in the game. If we're talking about individual honours or team honours, this is before Rooney really achieved anything. We're looking at Rooney as just a raw talent against a Jude Bellingham who was won the Champions League for Real Madrid, who's gone on to have a Ballon d'Or worthy campaign for Real Madrid in his first season. That first season for Bellingham, especially the first 6 months or so, Bellingham was one of the best players in the world. And we're talking about someone who started for England in the 2022 World Cup when I think he was about 18, I think, around that age as well. Went to Borussia Dortmund as a 17-year-old and lit up the Bundesliga. So we're looking at Bellingham against Rooney. Two very similar players, really. I think two players that play on the edge, two players that are very aggressive, players who like to get involved in the game and try and get goals and create goals and want to be the centrepiece of the team, want to be the man, want to be the leader. So we're just really looking at who was better. Who was better in... Was 2006 Rooney better than 2026 Jude Bellingham? That's what we're looking at here. I think Bellingham's got the advantage of probably having a little bit more time than Rooney. He's a little bit older than Rooney in this era. But Rooney was something special, man. Maybe it's because Bellingham's playing for a team that probably is a little bit more even as far as the quality goes. Where Rooney was just like Rooney was arguably one of the best teenage footballers of all time. You know, from 16 years old, playing against Arsenal, the goal that he scored when he lobbed David Seaman, being a full England international at 17 years old, being arguably the player of the tournament in 2004. Rooney against Bellingham. Oh, man. This is tough. This is so tough. If we're talking full career, obviously it's Wayne Rooney. I'm not ignorant to that. But because I did state earlier in the video, this is exclusively 2006 versus 2026. We're looking at football up till 2006 for this team. Maybe Bellingham might just pip Wayne Rooney. Maybe. Rooney was something special. I've not seen an England player like Wayne Rooney since Rooney. Like a young Wayne Rooney, like between the ages of 16 to 24. I know obviously that's going past this a little bit, but I've not seen a player like that produced by England. He could do everything. There's nothing Wayne Rooney couldn't do. He could play as number 9, he could play as number 10, he could play out wide, he was fast, he was strong, he could pick a pass. He had an amazing shot. There's power of his shots, he had aggression, he could trap back and defend and press the back four, he could do everything. But there's nothing Rooney couldn't do, where I think Bellingham sometimes probably dips in form quite a lot. I don't really think Bellingham offers as much off the ball as Rooney. I think Rooney probably was a bit more all round than Bellingham, I think. So I think narrowly, I'm just gonna have Rooney just above Bellingham, but it's close. Like, this no disrespect to Jude Bellingham at all. Obviously, he's from more or less the same area as me, so it's great to see someone from your area doing so well for themselves, and seeing Bellingham, represent, the area and represent, England in these big tournaments and around the world for Real Madrid and everything is great to see. And obviously he's had big moments. The overhead kick against Slovakia in the Euros is one of the most iconic England moments of the last 20 years. Arguably, that was an amazing moment for England and for Bellingham. I don't think Bellingham's ever had a tournament or a game for England that compares to anything that Rooney did in 2004. So 2 years before this, but in that same era, Rooney in 2004 was an alien. Like, he was literally an alien footballer. I've never seen a player like that in my lifetime. Just about, I'm going to have Wayne Rooney in this team. So yeah, Rooney gets in for me. Amazing player and deserves to be there for me. The last option in this team, we're looking at Michael Owen against Harry Kane. This is tough for me because I've got to try and take personal bias aside. Obviously, you can see Owen's top there, the Euro 2004 top. Michael Owen was one of my favourite players ever. I loved Michael Owen when I was a kid. The first football match I ever watched, that I ever really remember watching, was England against Germany in 2001. So I was really young then. I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. But I remember it so clearly. And Owen got a hat-trick in that game. Was playing amazing. Him and Heskey, that combination that they had, worked so well for England and for Liverpool. Won the Ballon d'Or as well that year. So, Michael Owen was scary, man. So you've got 98 really. You're looking at 98, 97, 98 through till 2006, where Harry Kane, I mean, he's getting older now, but he's still in the peak of his career. Arguably, he's never been better. And I have to say, even though I love Michael Owen, Harry Kane is in this team. It's definitely Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane is. I don't think he's the best England player of all time. I don't think he is. But if you're talking about the best goal scorer, who would I want at a tournament to lead England, to know he's going to guarantee goals and guarantee a high level of performance, it's Harry Kane. Harry Kane's been England's best performing striker probably since Shearer. If you're talking about game for game, if you're talking about his performances in tournaments, really since Shearer, maybe Owen at a push, but I don't think Owen never had a tournament like what Harry Kane had in 2018, where he won the Golden Boot. I know people are going to say, "Oh, he scored against Panama and Tunisia and Colombia," and I get that. That is an argument, but he still won the Golden Boot at a World Cup, which you can't turn your nose up at that. The goals he scored in the Euros for England. The last World Cup as well, I know he scored it over the bar against France from the penalty, but he did score in that game as well. He did score a penalty in that game. So Kane's always scored for England. He's just a relentless goal scorer, and I think as he's got older, he's added more to his game that Michael Owen just technically couldn't do. Michael Owen would never have dropped deep and picked the ball up and sprayed like 60-yard passes to his wingers. Owen just technically couldn't do that. He was a completely different striker. Owen was a channel runner. He was a natural finisher, running in behind the back four, stretching teams with his pace at his peak. That was Michael Owen, where Harry Kane is a more physical striker, could hold the ball up more, drawing fouls and slowing the game down and picking passes and scoring from outside the box and doing. He has more to his game than Michael Owen. Even though I think if you're talking peak of a player, I'm taking Michael Owen over Harry Kane. Again, it's the argument, isn't it? It's peak versus career. Peak is Michael Owen, but Harry Kane is just so relentless. I mean, he scored almost 70 goals this season in all competitions for club and country. Like, as much as I love Michael Owen, he never did that. And especially like we look in 2006, Michael Owen was pretty much finished by this era. He'd already had the injuries for Newcastle. He was just never the same player. Played in the World Cup, played a few games in the World Cup, was really off it, wasn't impressive at all, wasn't sharp, lacked that yard of pace, lacked that intensity and that aggression in his play, looked scared to run, and obviously he's come out and admitted all this afterwards. But when you watch Michael Owen play in this era, he wasn't nowhere near the same player. He was playing with fear, he was scared he was going to get injured. And obviously that did happen against Sweden very early on. He was out on the left, as he used to do a lot during his career in these early years. He'd drift out into the channels, and he went out over onto the left and passed the ball, and his knee just completely gave away. Really, after that, he was never the same player. He was out for about a year. After that, came back, not the same player, but obviously we're not thinking about that Michael Owen, we're talking about this Michael Owen. In 2006, he was still very highly regarded, was still regarded as England's probably best natural striker. But Harry Kane is England's best natural striker. He's the best striker we've had for the last decade. We have the combined 11 finally sorted, guys. So this was a tough one to do. You'll have to obviously let me know what you think about it. Maybe some players could have got in over some other players based off maybe their performances for England. Like you could argue Stones over Ferdinand, maybe, if you're looking at just what they've done in an England shirt. Maybe Saka over Beckham, you could argue. Maybe if you really wanted to, you could argue. But I think the rest the rest of the team picks itself. Okay, guys, so to give you a better visual look at how this team's going to look on paper, and to try and tactically break down how I think this team is going to play, we've gone onto FotMob, and we've put, obviously, the team in, as you can see. Pickford in goal, Reece James right back, Rio Ferdinand and John Terry as our centre-backs, Ashley Cole at left-back, David Beckham right midfield, with Gerrard and Rice in central midfield, and Joe Cole out on the left side of midfield, with Rooney playing as the number 10, with Harry Kane up front. So, if we're talking, like I said, tactically, this is how I think this England team would play, and how we get the best out of this team. So obviously, Jordan Pickford would be kind of a sweeper keeper for this team. I do think this team has the ability to play a rather high line. I don't think we'd play too high because of John Terry's pace. So obviously we couldn't play too high up the pitch because Terry wouldn't be able to have the recovery pace to get back. But I do think this is how this team would play. I think Declan Rice would kind of hold a little bit in midfield, kind of help to cover the back four. I think Real Ferdinand would be the one to come out with the ball and press a bit higher at the pitch. I think Wayne Rooney would kind of go into this area a little bit, allowing Steven Gerrard to push up and support Rooney to try and help Harry Kane up top, obviously. I think Joe Cole would, because of him being a natural right footer playing out on the left, I do think he would kind of come into this area on kind of a left-sided number 10 and interchange with Rooney, so Rooney could kind of go out on the left, kind of cut in and try and get crosses in. And Joe Cole would use his trickery and his skill to try and get into the box, cut inside on his right foot and link up with the other strikers. Ashley Cole would be a very much an attacking outlet on that right-hand side. Would be looking to provide width for the team, because I think this team would be quite narrow on the left-hand side. So a lot of the width would have to come through Ashley Cole, which means John Terry would have to go over a little bit, with Rice coming a little bit more central, with Steven Gerrard kind of playing there. David Beckham would probably take up this position a little bit, kind of come in, looking to get cross-field balls over towards Rooney and Kane, try and look for headers and try and look for knockdowns and second balls, with Reece James providing a little bit of width as well, but not going too high up the pitch. I think he would provide a bit more defensive stability, especially in one-on-ones, depending on who we play against, where Beckham would kind of play in this area of the pitch to try and look for chances to whip in balls. And I think Harry Kane would drop deep to try and link up, then would allow Wayne Rooney and Joe Cole to kind of get more chances, flood the box, and try and get goals. So tactically, I think on the ball, this is how we would look. So it almost plays like, I think if James tucks in a little bit there, Cole gets a bit more forward, you're kind of looking at almost like a 3-1-4-2, really. I think Kane supporting Rooney, Joe Cole kind of playing in this area, with Steven Gerrard pushing a little bit more further forward. So really you're looking at two different areas of the pitch. So this area of the pitch behind the line would be Pickford playing a little bit higher up the pitch, Terry playing out on the left side at centre back, looking to spray balls. Obviously Terry was great with his left and right foot, so Terry would be brilliant trying to switch balls to Beckham and James on the overlap, taking the ball and playing that Gary Neville role that he played so well with Beckham. I think James will be brilliant at that. Or James could spring balls from here as well. Ashley Cole would be looking to replicate what he did with Arsenal, with Henry and Pires. I think Cole would play a very Pires-like role in this team where he'd cut in, and then Rooney would kind of play in this area here, and then allowing Ashley Cole to bomb and use either as a distraction out on the left or as an option for width to whipping crosses, with Harry Kane playing a bit of a false nine role, dropping deep, and then allowing him to make late runs into the box unmarked to get headers. So that is how I think this team would play. Obviously, let me know in the comments below how you think this team has lined up, how you think this team has played, how this team would play together. Obviously, we just obviously had a look at how they look with the ball. Obviously, without the ball, I think they would kind of keep a more structured shape, like this, for example. I think they would play a little bit more like that. When they don't have the ball, I think we keep it very structured. 2 banks of 4. Try and keep our shape, especially against more elite teams like a Brazil or a France of either era, or Spain. try and keep the ball and then use the ability that we have from our fullbacks, the pace that we have from our fullbacks, the ability on the ball of people like Beckham, the late runs of Gerrard into the box, the creativity of Rooney, the positional fluidity of Harry Kane to create chances for the players to score goals. So let me know, obviously, what you think. Is there anyone that you switch in to this team? Is there anyone you take out? Is there anything you disagree with? Please let me know in the comments below. If you want to see another one of these videos, please let me know. I've got loads of other ones that I want to do, where we could do Brazil, 2006 to 2026. We could do the French team, the Germans, Spanish. Really getting into this World Cup fever at the moment to look back from 20 years ago and do a comparison to modern football and see who had the better teams. So yeah, guys, once again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe. It means the world. Please drop a like, share it with your mates, get in the comments, have a little discussion, and let me know what you think, guys. So yeah, up until next time, I'll see you all very, very soon. See you later.